Hey everyone, today I'm going to be updating my Conjuring ranking. Couple quick things before I start. First, no matter how many times these movies say they're based off real events, they're not. Ed and Lorraine Warren were con artists, and that's all I have to say about it. And secondly, spoiler alert. Starting off down at the bottom. Number 8 is The Nun. This is the second movie to take an existing Conjuring villain and make them lame. Now, this movie does have some stuff going for it. The acting is good overall, especially Thaisa Farmiga. Bonnie Aarons gives a great physical performance as Valak. The set design is awesome, and the main setting genuinely feels like this creepy old castle. I love it. The cinematography is also good. That's one thing I can say for all of these movies. And there is one good jump scare. My biggest problem with this movie is that there are too many jump scares. There's the one good one, but the rest of them are just pointless. All jump and no scare. Like, they're hollow.
Not even God can save.
Oh God.
This movie's plot is about as thin as my shirt. There's not a lot going on there. And there are so many moments in this movie that could have been cool if they made any sense, but they don't, so they're not. And the final reveal makes absolutely no sense. The climax is admittedly decent, but then that reveal just ruins it. Because it makes absolutely no sense. My score is 1.5 out of 5. Number 7 is Annabelle. This movie was described by the folks at CinemaSins as the best looking piece of shit since Alien 3. I agree with that, but I also think it's an insult to Alien 3. I do have to praise the cast. Annabelle Wallis and Ward Horton are both great, they have strong chemistry, and their interactions feel very believable. Also, unlike in most horror movies, the husband in this movie actually believes his wife about the spooky shit that's going on. He's not dismissive, he doesn't belittle her and call her crazy. He's on her side, and it's so refreshing to see. The direction is pretty good, and the cinematography is great. The basement scene is legitimately scary, there are a few good jump scares, and I like how the ending links up to the beginning of the first Conjuring. This movie's biggest problem is the writing. The actors do their best, but to paraphrase James from Dead Meat, these are likable characters because of the actors made to do stupid things for plot reasons. Also, this movie is kind of boring. For a movie that promised evil doll shenanigans, there aren't very many evil doll shenanigans. When there aren't any jump scares happening, there are these long scenes that are supposed to build suspense, but they don't. My score is 2 out of 5. Number 6 is The Curse of Lyorona. The acting and cinematography are good, although the cinematography is probably the least good in the franchise here. Linda Cardellini and Raymond Cruz are good, and the kid actors are at least decent. The standout here is Marisol Ramirez as Lyorona. She is pretty damn good. The musical score is also decent. One thing I like is that this movie confirms my theory that a priest's ability to bless holy water is limited by what he can see. So if you can see the entire body of water, you can bless the entire body of water. And we see that when Raphael blesses the swimming pool in the backyard.
Bendito seas tú, Señor, Dios Todopoderoso. Ven a bendecirnos con Jesucristo, el agua bendita de nuestra salvación. Danos a nosotros fuerza con esta agua bendita. Amén.
The problem is that this movie barely scratches the surface on the story of La Llorona. It feels like it's just there for set dressing, or for the frosting on the cake, or whatever metaphor you want to use. Instead, it just relies on a bunch of jump scares, and some of them are good, but a lot of them are bad. The Curse of Lyorona is basically just a generic ghost story with better acting and cinematography than they usually get. They also don't do a very good job of defining Lyoroona's abilities, how strong she is, which makes it hard to know how much danger the characters are in at any given moment. My score is 2.1 out of 5. Number 5 is The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. This movie is a step up for director Michael Chavez and a step down for the core Conjuring films. It takes about the same amount of creative liberties with the true story as the first two movies, which is to say a whole heaping fuckload of them. I do like that they went in new directions with the plot. The villain is fine. I do like that they went in a different direction and had a human villain unleashing something supernatural instead of just something supernatural on its own. The problem is, when you have sequels in a franchise like this, with each sequel, you have to raise the threat level. The first three Pirates of the Caribbean movies did a great job of this. The Conjuring 2 also did a good job of this. Devil Made Me Do It? Not so much. Regardless, the pacing is on point and Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are great as usual. Their chemistry is, like, the main reason this movie works. Some of the jump scares work, others you can see coming a mile away. The musical score is good and the cinematography is solid. Score is 3 out of 5. Number 4 is Annabelle Comes Home. This was the directorial debut of Gary Dauberman, who wrote all three Annabelle movies and co-wrote The Nun and It Chapters 1 and 2. And I think he did a pretty good job. This movie isn't particularly scary, but it's fun. It's entertaining. This is a fun horror movie. Ever since I saw the first Conjuring, I've wanted a movie where Annabelle gets loose and unleashes a whole bunch of ghosts and witches and demons and shit. And this movie delivered exactly that. This movie has some of the most fleshed out characters in the franchise. McKenna Grace, Madison Eisman, and Katie Sarif are all great. Their characters are all fleshed out and have clear motivations. Even Daniela, the one who accidentally lets Annabelle out, has a clearly defined reason for what she did. We understand why she did it. Michael Cimino, I hope I said that right, gives us some pretty good comic relief as Bob, and he and Madison Eisman have very good chemistry. They're adorable. Speaking of which, there's some pretty good humor in this movie.
Bob, Mrs. Faley went ahead and dropped a can of tomato sauce in aisle 5, and it looks like a crime scene. So get the mop.
There's been an accident.
Then there's all the haunted stuff in the artifact room. I love the variety that we get. And yeah, you could argue that this movie takes too long to get to the spooky stuff, but I didn't really mind because I was invested in the characters. My score is 3.5 out of 5. Number 3 is The Conjuring 2. This is probably the scariest movie in the franchise. This movie does have jump scares, but unlike some of the other movies, it actually earns them.
House!
James Wan is one of the few modern horror directors who consistently earns his jump scares. The acting is solid across the board. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga have fantastic chemistry. Frances O'Connor is great, all the kids are pretty good, and Bonnie Aarons and Javier Botet give solid physical performances as Valak and the Crooked Man respectively. I also love how creative this movie gets with the spooky shit. The whole interview with the ghost scene is just awesome. I only have a couple small problems with this movie. One, it takes way too long for the Warrens to get to London. You could probably trim like 5 or 10 minutes off the first half of this movie and not really lose anything of value. And second, this movie's plot feels a little too similar to the first movie. It does some stuff that's different, but it hits a lot of the same beats and it's lacking some of the freshness. My score is 3.9 out of 5. Number 2 is Annabelle Creation. This was the first Conjuring movie I saw in theaters, so it'll always have a special place in my heart. David F. Sandberg really made this movie his own, and Gary Dauberman's realistic characters and dialogue also help. The cinematography is great, and so is the acting. Most of the main cast are kids and teenagers, and they all give solid performances. The musical score is excellent, one of the best in the franchise. This movie does have a few too many jump scares, but it's really only in the first half. Once we get to the second half, they start to use them less and less, and the ones that they do have in the second half genuinely work.
Don't look at her. No. No, please, please, please. Please. She's gone. She's gone.
What's going on?
I also feel like some of the characters were a little too curious, like beyond human nature curious. But there are only a couple moments where it happens, so it's not really a huge problem. The score is 4 out of 5. Finally, my number 1 is The Conjuring. This movie is a modern classic. I love every minute of it. The acting is solid across the board. Every performance is good, if not great. The cinematography is top-notch. Many of the other movies in the franchise have tried to imitate that one shot through the house, but this is the one that really makes it work. Every jump scare is earned, and some even subvert your expectations.
Oh, I know where you're hiding. Give me the third clap. I'm gonna get you now. I can hear you breathing.
Ha! You took your blindfold off. I went. You weren't even warm, Mom. I was in Christine and Nancy's room.
Joseph Bishara's musical score is great, and I would argue it's his best work to date. He also plays Bathsheba the Witch, and his physical performance is awesome. The score is 5 out of 5. That's all for today. Let me know what you think. What's your ranking? Like and subscribe and all that. If you don't like the video, subscribe anyway so you can tell me how bad my other stuff is. That's all for today. Stay safe in these crazy times.